Dear friend, today we want to share with you a story so strange it's almost unbelievable. And yet every word is true. A woman lived quietly in the Oregon woods, with a husband who believed the world should run in order. But then, that peaceful rhythm began to fracture because of the odd behavior of a wild creature, a bobcat. It didn't growl, didn't attack. It did only one thing. It rubbed its head and licked a single spot on the woman's neck, over and over, persistently, hauntingly. The husband began to suspect. Was this some kind of bond that defied logic? Was the bobcat, a famously solitary and untamable animal, holding on to a secret that no human could yet comprehend? Don't look away, because the truth they would later uncover didn't just shatter the husband's heart. It might leave you speechless too. Watch until the end. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to look at the gaze of your pet not just as something adorable, but as a quiet cry, a gentle warning, or a love that asks for nothing in return. It was a gray October afternoon. Rain fell softly, like drops of memory blanketing the pine forest. The company system had crashed, and Henry, a man who lived by the clock, came home early for the first time, unannounced. In his hand, he carried a cup of warm ginger cinnamon tea, the drink Mara always made whenever she had a headache, a small gift meant to surprise her. But the moment he opened the door, he knew something was off. No footsteps, no music. Even the familiar scent of lavender essential oil seemed to have vanished. Henry stepped quietly up the stairs, each beat of his heart heavier with every wooden step. The bedroom door was ajar. He hesitated, then pushed it open, inch by inch, and the sight before him stopped him cold. Silver light from the small window spilled softly into the dim room, tracing the quiet curve of her silhouette. Mara was lying on her side, head resting on her arm, eyes half closed, her shirt collar slightly open, revealing the skin above her collarbone. And Sage, the bobcat Henry had thought had returned to the forest, was right beside her, gently rubbing its head against that spot, then licking it slowly, tenderly, as if healing something no human hand could touch. Henry couldn't speak, not from fear, but because he had just touched something sacred that logic could never explain. Mara's face seemed far away, as if she had long drifted beyond that room. Peaceful, faint, beautiful in a sorrowful way. She lay on her side, brown hair spilling across the pillow, her collar slightly undone, revealing the skin above the clavicle, where the silver light from the window washed over her, blurred like mist. And Sage, the bobcat born from the loneliness of the deep forest, sat still beside her, its posture low, body subtly tensed, as if holding a silent prayer. Its tongue touched her neck, again and again, slowly, with care, as if sensing a wound hidden where no one else could see. Henry stood frozen in the doorway, not from fear, not from jealousy, but from a feeling so wrong it chilled his skin. A disturbance no words could explain, and a truth the heart hadn't yet named. No sound, only the damp, faint rhythm of slow licks, and his own breath, shallow and quick. Then, Mara opened her eyes. She didn't startle, didn't turn her head. She simply looked at him, calm as if she had known he would come. "I was just resting," she said in a whisper, like the sound of leaves falling to the ground. "Sage does this a lot. It makes me feel better." Henry didn't answer. His throat was dry. He stepped back slowly, then gently closed the door, like someone shutting away a dream they were never meant to see. The coffee on the kitchen counter cooled, untouched. That afternoon drifted by like fog, thick, voiceless. He didn't ask, didn't speak of what he had just witnessed, but the image kept replaying in his mind like a reel stuck in the projector. Dim light, her skin, the way Sage tilted its head, the way its tongue gently touched, and the quiet expression on Mara's face. Not pain, but a strange kind of peace. That night, they lay beside each other like two strangers sharing the same world. Mara fell asleep quickly, but Henry lay restless, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing and feeling the cold seep in from the distance between them. Sage lay in the middle of the bed. Its head rested on Mara's neck, like a guardian, not sleeping, not looking away. In the days that followed, Henry tried to convince himself. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe it was the scent. Maybe it was some kind of skin reaction that triggered Sage's behavior. But logic couldn't calm the racing of his heart, because it didn't stop. Sage followed her everywhere. If Mara went to the kitchen, it walked beside her, brushing past Henry as if he were invisible. If she lay down to read, it curled up next to her, eyes locked on her neck as if listening to a sound coming from beneath her skin. One night, Mara got up to use the bathroom. Sage sprang up before she even moved, as if it had sensed her breath shifting in the dark. Henry tried to joke, gently. I think Sage deserves a security badge. Maybe I need clearance just to enter the bedroom. Mara didn't laugh. She didn't even look up. It's sensitive, she said, ladling another spoonful of soup into her bowl. Animals sense more than we do. Energy, emotion. Sure, Henry replied awkwardly. But lately, it's like it's glued to you. Mara set her spoon down. It's always been that way. Maybe you're just noticing now. But Henry was noticing everything. And there was something else he couldn't ignore. Sage avoided him. If Mara wasn't present, the bobcat would keep its distance. Not approach, not make eye contact, not react even when he called, even when he held out a piece of smoked meat it used to love. One early morning, before the sun had risen, Henry woke up and stepped into the hallway. Mara's reading room door was ajar. He peeked inside and saw Sage sitting still beside her favorite reading chair. Not sleeping, not lying down, just sitting, eyes wide open, staring into the empty space, as if waiting for her to appear or guarding the memory of her. That evening, Henry made a suggestion. How about a weekend trip to the mountains? Fresh air, you always liked that. No, Mara replied immediately, without a second's thought. I was thinking we could leave Sage at your sister's. No, she cut him off, her voice sharper. He'll get sick if I leave. The last time I was gone for 2 days, he stopped eating, vomited all night. Henry stared at his wife for a long time. Sweetheart, it's a bobcat, a wild animal, not family. Mara didn't answer. That night, Sage lay in the middle of the bed again. Henry curled up on the edge, cold, distant, and quietly wondered whether he was the real outsider in this house. Later that night, after Mara had fallen asleep, Henry lay still on the edge of the bed, his back turned toward her, as if to turn around was to face something that no longer belonged to him. Sage didn't lie at the foot of the bed like an ordinary cat. It lay right in the middle, head resting on Mara's neck, the very spot it licked every night, as if performing a slow, haunting ritual full of intent. Its licking echoed through the night, soft, rhythmic, damp, like wind sharpening itself against stone. Henry didn't move. His eyes stayed wide open in the dark, every fiber of his body stiff with stillness. He didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, Henry stood motionless at the sink, his hands gripping the cold stone edge. Outside, the old maple tree in the yard swayed in the wind. Behind him, the coffee dripped slowly into the cup, each drop falling like the heartbeat of someone desperately trying to hold on to reason. Mara sat at the table, her head bowed over her phone. Her hand absent-mindedly stroked Sage's back, the bobcat lying obediently at her feet like a breathing shadow. There was no trace of anything on her face. No discomfort, no avoidance, as if nothing had happened the night before. Henry placed the hot coffee cup in front of his wife, forcing a smile, but it never reached his eyes. "You didn't sleep well," Mara said, still looking at her screen. "No," he replied. "And you?" "Slept deeply. That was all." No one mentioned what happened at 3 a.m., when her shirt had ridden up to her collarbone, and Sage continued its ritual, undisturbed, unhurried, as if trying to warn of something only it could sense. That evening, after Mara had gone to bed, Henry poured himself a small glass of whiskey and sat alone in the living room. He opened his phone, scrolling through old photos. The day they brought Sage home, when it was still a small, trembling creature in a rusted rescue cage. Mara had chosen it. Not the biggest, not the prettiest, but the quietest one, with the saddest eyes in the group. "It has a still soul," she had said. "A soul that knows how to listen." Back then, Henry had only scoffed. But now, those words clung to him like mist. Sage was no longer an ordinary animal. It was like an invisible hand holding on to Mara, guarding her, wrapping her in something both sacred and terrifying. In the days that followed, Henry watched more closely, and everything only got worse. Sage wouldn't eat unless Mara was present. It sat outside the bathroom door whenever she went in. If she shifted on the sofa, Sage would move with her, as if bound to her by an invisible thread, connected at the level of molecules. One night, Henry stepped out of the bedroom. He found Sage standing completely still in front of the door, like a stone statue, its eyes fixed on the door. "Sage?" he whispered. The bobcat didn't react, didn't turn, didn't blink. It just stared, and that stare wasn't the gaze of an animal. It was heavy, deep, cold. It sent goosebumps crawling up Henry's arms. He returned to the bedroom without a word, but once again, he didn't sleep. 1 week, then 2. Henry missed a project deadline, forgot meetings, and lost focus on calls. His boss told him, "You should take a few days off, clear your head." He agreed. He stayed home for 2 straight days, pretending to rest, but in truth, he watched. On Monday morning at 6:45, he passed by the reading room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, Sage was sitting exactly where Mara usually sat every morning, the old wooden chair still bearing the dent where her shoulder used to lean. Mara was still asleep upstairs, yet Sage sat there, as if waiting or remembering, a replica of memory. That evening, dinner went cold. Reheated pasta, untouched. Henry set his fork down. Sage lay beneath the table, its head resting on the top of Mara's foot, eyes closed, but ears twitching faintly. "We need to talk about Sage," Henry began. Mara froze, her fork mid-air. "What about Sage?" "This obsession," Henry said. "It's not normal." Mara frowned. "It follows your every step. It won't eat without you. It stares at you constantly and—" He swallowed hard. "And it licks you every night in the same spot, like a ritual." Her jaw tightened. "It just loves me. That's all." "No." His voice was low but firm. "I've seen it many times. It's not just affection. It's signaling something or protecting something. I don't know, but it's no longer normal love. The same spot, the same way. The way it lays its head on your neck like it owns that part of you." Henry's voice was hoarse. "No longer angry, just confused." Mara set her fork down. Her spine tensed like a violin string pulled too tight. "Ah, you're being ridiculous." "I don't think so," Henry said, slowly but steadily. "I think something's wrong with it, with you, with everything." Mara gripped the edge of the table. She looked him in the eye, as if trying to pierce through his doubt. "You're jealous of a wild animal?" Henry furrowed his brows. What? You're jealous, Henry. Because Sage understands me. Because I feel safe around him. Because he knows when I'm tired, when I'm sad, when I hurt. While you only ask, what's wrong? And when you don't get an answer, you blame a creature whose only crime is loving me. Henry slammed his hand on the table. The sound of dishes clattering rang out coldly. Sage, curled up beneath the table, flinched. "Love?" Henry choked. "That's love? Lying on top of you, licking your neck every night like what, Henry?" Mara shot up, her eyes ablaze. "Say it." But Henry couldn't, because he didn't even know what he was accusing. In that drawn-out silence, Mara stood tall. "If you can't stand the fact that I love a soul that isn't human, then that's your problem, not his. Don't drag Sage into your paranoia." Then she turned and walked away. Sage rose and silently followed, like a shadow. Henry remained, staring into the empty space across the table. His heart pounded like war drums, but there was no strength left for words. That night, after Mara had fallen asleep, he sat alone in the dark living room, the dim table lamp casting a dull glow on the cold wooden floor. The laptop was open. His fingers trembled as he typed into the search bar, "Bobcat detects illness in humans. Pets warning of cancer. Animals sensing biochemical changes in humans." Dozens of results appeared. Some serious, some vague, like folklore. But one line repeated like a knock against his heart. "Certain animals, especially dogs and feral cats, have the ability to sense microscopic changes in the human body, including cancerous cells." And then Henry remembered what the vet had once said during a checkup for Sage's old injury. "If your bobcat suddenly changes behavior, pay attention. Sometimes they know before we do." Before sunrise, Henry was already awake. He went to the living room, brought out blankets, a pillow, a water bowl, and some old toys, and cleaned up the small downstairs room. He turned it into a new space for Sage. Not as punishment, just for clarity, to think. When Mara came downstairs, still groggy, he said quietly, "Sage will sleep down here from now on." Mara froze. Her expression shattered into pieces. "You're punishing him?" "No," Henry replied, eyes steady. "I'm protecting you." She said nothing, just stood there, lips pressed tight and trembling. Henry stepped forward, picked up the leash. Sage followed obediently, but its eyes never left Mara, as if afraid that if it blinked, she would disappear. That night, for the first time in nearly 2 years, Sage slept alone, and the whole house felt suffocatingly empty. But that was only the beginning. Because that separation would unravel a truth neither of them was ready to face. The atmosphere in the house changed, not peaceful anymore, but stifling. Mara moved like a shadow, ate less, spoke less, eyes often staring blankly out the window. And Sage, once wild, once vibrant, now curled up in the corner of the room like a coiled lump of sadness. Didn't eat, didn't play, didn't even look at Henry. Its fur dulled, its eyes lost their light. One evening, Henry opened the door and sat beside it. He placed a hand on Sage's back, the other offering a piece of smoked meat. No movement, no response. Henry sank down, back against the wall. He sat there for over an hour, in the dark, eyes stinging, hands trembling, and a quiet apology he couldn't voice aloud. He whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I really didn't know." Sage only blinked slowly, then gently turned its head toward the ceiling, toward the room where Mara slept, as if reminding Henry that all the answers were still up there. Sage blinked, slow and weary. Then it turned its head, not to Henry, but upward, where Mara was sleeping. A few hours later, a soft thud broke the night. Henry jolted awake. The sound was faint, but something about it felt wrong. He rushed downstairs, heart pounding. The door to Sage's room was ajar. The nightlight cast a dim glow across the bobcat's dark fur. Sage was still lying there, in its usual spot, but its breathing was rapid, each inhale trembling as if winter wind had invaded its lungs. Henry knelt down, touched its back, cold as stone. Gums pale, legs twitching weakly. Terror surged like a flood. Henry scooped Sage up, frighteningly light, like lifting an old, thin blanket. It didn't resist, didn't whimper, just lay still in his arms, chest rising and falling faintly. He drove like a madman to the 24-hour emergency animal center near the woods. As the automatic doors opened, the smell of disinfectant and harsh white light hit him like a wave. Henry nearly shouted, "Help him, please!" A young technician rushed over, took Sage from his arms, and disappeared inside. No questions, no paperwork. Henry collapsed into one of the cold, hard plastic chairs, head in his hands. He didn't even realize he was crying until someone handed him a tissue. An hour later, the vet came out, her coat wrinkled and her hand still with a few stray hairs. "We've stabilized him," she said, voice tired but gentle. He was severely dehydrated and emotionally stressed. Henry looked up, repeating the words in disbelief. "Emotionally stressed?" The doctor nodded. Animals, especially those with strong bonds to humans like rescued bobcats, can fall into depressive states if separated from that connection. Something tightened inside Henry, a guilt as sharp as a blade. But then the vet paused, her eyes serious. "There's one more thing I need to ask. Does this animal frequently touch or lick a specific area on your wife's body?" Henry blinked. "Yes, her neck, just above the right collarbone, every day." The doctor exhaled deeply. "We've seen similar cases with dogs, and sometimes feral cats. They can detect changes in scent, skin, hormones, and even cells. In other words, he may have sensed something growing inside her." Henry felt the blood drain from his face. His voice dropped. "You mean illness?" "Not certain," she said. "But I strongly recommend she get that area examined as soon as possible." That night, Henry didn't go home. He sat in his car, parked outside the clinic in the cold. The silver-gray sky slowly shifted to pale blue. The first light of dawn filtered through the windshield, but Henry could see only one thing. If everything Sage had tried to say was real, then he was already too late. That afternoon, Henry sat down across from Mara in the living room. No long explanation, no defense, just, "I need to talk about Sage, about his behavior, and what the vet said." Mara said nothing for a long time. She simply listened. Her hand brushed the napkin on the table. Then she stood, grabbed her coat. No questions, no need for clarification. She looked at him once, nodded slightly. Henry knew. She would go. 3 days passed like frozen time. Blood tests, ultrasound, CT scans. Each time the phone buzzed, Henry jumped. On the afternoon of the third day, Mara received the call. Henry sat a few feet away, silent. She listened. Quiet. then gently sank into the chair as if the ground beneath her had disappeared. "There's a mass," she said, eyes not meeting his. "In the lymph node area of my neck. Small, but it's there." Henry couldn't breathe. "The doctor said it was caught early. Surgery is possible. Maybe light radiation. They're optimistic." The words floated past him, not pausing long enough to settle, but something had settled in his heart. The days, the nights, the strange behaviors of Sage suddenly became an undeniable truth. That evening, Mara visited Sage in the recovery ward. Fluorescent light spilled across his dull, faded fur. He was still curled up, trembling, but when he saw her, his ears perked up. His tail twitched slightly. Mara knelt down, cupping his face in both hands. "Hey, my wild little boy," she whispered. "I understand now. I finally heard what you've been trying to say." Sage licked the back of her hand gently, then exhaled, as if finally released. The next morning, she brought him home. They lay together on the long bench by the window. Sage rested his head on her chest. Mara's fingers traced the line of his spine as if writing a thank you in a language no human had ever invented. Henry stood a few steps away. He said nothing. He only watched, his heart learning how to breathe again. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Mara didn't tremble, didn't panic, because she knew, somehow, in a quiet miracle, she had been warned, not through words, but through eyes, through instinct, from the only being in the world who had always silently guarded the gates of her heart. The operation was successful. The tumor was removed entirely. Margins were clean. No invasion. The doctors were optimistic. Mara entered the path of recovery, slow but steady, with Henry by her side and her heart, still bearing the imprint of a golden gaze from a creature who was never meant to stay. 3 weeks later, on a sunny morning, Mara came home. No flowers, no fanfare, just Sage, sitting on the porch as if he'd never left. He didn't leap, didn't cry out. He simply walked forward slowly, one cautious step at a time, like an old soul visiting a memory. Then he lifted his head, and his nose gently touched the right side of her neck. One last time. Just once. As if double-checking, as if confirming, "Yes, you're safe now." And then he lay down at her feet. No more tension, no more alertness, just sleep. Real sleep. A deep, dreamless sleep. No longer guarding, no longer warning. Henry stood in the doorway, hand resting on the wooden frame, quietly watching them. The woman he loved, and the wild soul who had kept her alive. Only now did he understand. Sage had never come between them. He had simply stepped into the space Henry had left vacant, between silence and helplessness, between what was left unsaid and what she could no longer speak. He hadn't destroyed anything. He protected, he sheltered, and when everything began to crack, he was the one thing holding their love from falling apart. Henry stepped forward, slowly, then sat down beside them. He placed his hand on Sage's back, warm and soft, rising gently with each calm breath. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for loving her when I wasn't strong enough to do it myself." No one said anything else that night. They didn't need to, because some love needs no words. Some lives are saved not by medicine, but by a gentle lick, a gaze that sees through everything, a soul wrapped in fur, wild but purer than anything we humans will ever understand. And sometimes it is that love, the kind that walks in from the forest, that keeps you alive. Dear friend, thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. A journey not only about illness, but about intuition, loyalty, and the kind of connection that defies logic. If this story moved you, please leave a comment. We read every single one. And if this is your first time visiting the channel, hit the subscribe button and the little bell beside it. We have many more healing stories waiting for you. See you in the next video. May you and the souls you love always be safe and well.